Welcome back to Boss Economics World, the channel where we shred through the economic nonsense peddled by governments, corporations, and so-called experts, and lay bare the brutal truth about what's really tanking our wallets, our jobs, and our future. I'm your host, the no-nonsense economic vigilante, here to expose the circus of incompetence, greed, and political posturing that's driving us straight into the ditch of recession, again. Buckle up, because today, we're diving headfirst into the CHIPS and Science Act debacle, a $52 billion boondoggle that's become the latest punching bag in the Trump-Biden economic cage match. Spoiler alert, no matter who wins, you, the taxpayer, lose. Let's roll. First, let's break down what this CHIPS and Science Act even is. Signed into law by Joe Biden in 2022, it's a massive $52 billion taxpayer-funded love letter to the semiconductor industry, dolled up as a noble quest to bring manufacturing back to America and reduce our reliance on Asia for the tiny chips that power everything from your iPhone to Uncle Sam's missiles. Sounds great, right? Who doesn't want more jobs, more factories, and less dependence on foreign supply chains? But here's the kicker, folks, this isn't some selfless act of economic patriotism. It's industrial policy on steroids, a government picking winners and losers, and guess what? The winners are the same corporate titans who've been raking in billions while you're stuck choosing between groceries and rent. The act dishes out $39 billion in grants to incentivize chip manufacturing, $11 billion for R&D, and opens the door to $75 billion in loans and loan guarantees. Oh, and don't forget the cherry on top, a juicy 25% tax credit for manufacturing projects, which, according to the Peterson Institute for International Economics, June 2024, could cost the government over $85 billion in lost revenue. That's 3 times the original Congressional Budget Office estimate, folks. So, while you're sweating over your tax bill, Intel, TSMC, Samsung, and Micron are laughing all the way to the bank, pocketing billions in subsidies and tax breaks. And for what? To build factories that take years to come online, if they even do, while the global semiconductor race leaves us eating dust. Now, enter Donald Trump, stage right, swinging his tariff hammer like Thor on a bad hair day. Trump's been trashing the CHIPS Act, calling it a horrible, horrible thing, and begging his Republican cronies in Congress to repeal it faster than you can say, supply chain crisis. His argument? Subsidies are for suckers, tariffs are the real deal. Slap a big, fat import duty on semiconductors, and voila, companies will magically flock to the US to build factories, all while filling Uncle Sam's coffers with tariff revenue. Genius, right? Wrong. Let's get real here, folks. Trump's claiming credit for TSMC's $100 billion investment in US plants, saying it's all because of his tariff threats. But TSMC themselves said it's because of market demand, not Trump's bluster. And let's not forget, tariffs are a tax on you, the consumer. The U.S. International Trade Commission, USIC, reported in 2023 that Trump's first trade war added $80 billion in costs to American consumers and businesses, with the average household losing $600 a year. Now, he's promising new semiconductor tariffs as early as April 2025. What's that mean? Higher prices for everything, your phone, your car, your smart fridge, while the government plays economic chicken with China, Taiwan, and the rest of the world. And here's the kicker, tariffs don't even work as a standalone strategy. The Semiconductor Industry Association, SIA, warned in 2024 that tariffs on chips could disrupt supply chains, delay innovation, and tank U.S. competitiveness. Oh, and remember those factories the CHIPS Act is funding? If Trump's tariffs jack up the cost of imported raw materials and components, those projects could stall out faster than a Tesla in a snowstorm. But hey, at least the federal government gets a few extra bucks in tariff revenue while you're stuck paying $1,000 more for your next laptop. Winning. Now, let's talk about who's really cashing in on this CHIPS Act bonanza. Spoiler alert, it ain't the little guy. According to the Commerce Department, around 3/4 of the $39 billion in grant funding is going to just for companies, Intel, TSMC, Samsung, and Micron. Intel alone is pocketing $7.9 billion for commercial factories and another $3 billion for military chips. Meanwhile, smaller businesses in the semiconductor supply chain. They got a measly $500 million set aside, and not a single dime was awarded before Biden left office. So much for revitalizing the industry, it's just another corporate welfare scheme dressed up as economic policy. And let's not kid ourselves, these mega corporations aren't exactly hurting for cash. TSMC, for example, is planning to spend $42 billion on capital expenditures in 2025 alone, according to their own projections. That's almost the entire CHIPS Act grant budget in 1 year from one company. So why do they need your tax dollars? Because they can get away with it, that's why. The government's handing out free money, and these corporate behemoths are first in line, while small businesses and workers get crumbs. Oh, and don't forget the states raking in the investment, Arizona, Ohio, New York, and Texas. Sounds great, right? Jobs, factories, economic growth. But here's the dirty little secret, these projects are years away from delivering, if they deliver at all. Intel and Samsung are already drowning in financial woes, with Intel announcing 15,000 layoffs in August 2024, Bloomberg, and Samsung's chip division posting a $7 billion loss in 2023, Reuters. If these big players can't keep their projects afloat, all those taxpayer billions are just monopoly money flushed down the drain. Now, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because this isn't just a US story, it's a global cage match, and we're getting pummeled. While the US is throwing $52 billion at the problem, China's going all in on its own chip ambitions. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, SISE, 2024, China's investing over $150 billion in its semiconductor industry, dwarfing the CHIPS Act. They're not just chasing advanced chips either, they're flooding the market with older, cheaper chips, undercutting US competitors and raising alarm bells in Washington. And guess what? While we're busy arguing over tariffs versus subsidies, China's state-backed firms are eating our lunch. The SIA estimates that without the CHIPS Act, the U.S. share of global chip manufacturing would have shrunk to 8% by 2032, down from 10% today. With the Act, we might hit 14%. Woohoo, right? Wrong. Even at 14%, we're still a distant third behind Taiwan, which controls 60% of advanced chip production, per SIA 2024, and South Korea. And let's not forget, those factories we're building with taxpayer money. They're years away from producing at scale, if they ever do. TSMC's Arizona plant is a rare success story, but Intel's Ohio project is already delayed, and Samsung's Texas facility is bleeding cash. Meanwhile, China's factories are churning out chips faster than you can say, supply chain resilience. So, can Trump actually kill the CHIPS Act? Probably not. It passed with bipartisan support, and too many Republican districts are salivating over those factory jobs to let it die quietly. Plus, Senate Democrats would filibuster any repeal faster than you can say, midterm elections. But here's the real danger, Trump doesn't need to repeal it to ruin it. His Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, is already overseeing a 40% staff cut at the office managing the CHIPS Act, according to Politico, December 2024. Sure, Lutnick spared the teams handling the money, for now, but he's also reviewing all the planned investments. Translation, he's looking for ways to renegotiate, delay, or claw back funds, all while claiming he's streamlining the program. And don't forget, folks, the CHIPS Act's contracts give the government way too much wiggle room to mess with the deals. Companies are already worried that Trump's team could stall disbursements or impose new conditions, like scrapping labor and environmental rules. Sure, that might sound good to the deregulation crowd, but it's a disaster waiting to happen. Delays and uncertainty kill investment faster than a recession, and if companies start pulling out, all those billions in taxpayer money are just a fancy IOU to nowhere. Now, let's connect the dots to the bigger economic picture, because this CHIPS Act drama isn't happening in a vacuum. The U.S. economy is teetering on the edge of recession, and government mismanagement, like this CHIPS Act circus, is pouring fuel on the fire. The Federal Reserve's own data, October 2024, shows manufacturing activity contracting for 6 straight months, with the ISM Manufacturing Index below 50. Consumer confidence is tanking, with the Conference Board's index dropping to 98.7 in September 2024, the lowest since mid-2022. And don't even get me started on inflation, core CPI is still running at 3.2%, Bureau of Labor Statistics, November 2024, eating away at your purchasing power while wages stagnate. So, what's the government doing? Throwing billions at corporate cronies, slapping tariffs on everything, and playing political ping-pong with policies that take years to bear fruit, if they ever do. Meanwhile, small businesses, the backbone of the economy, are getting crushed. The National Federation of Independent Business, NFIB, reported in October 2024 that 28% of small business owners can't fill job openings because they can't compete with the wages offered by subsidized giants like Intel. And let's not forget the $1.9 trillion in federal debt added in 2024 alone, U.S. Treasury, all while the government's handing out tax credits and grants like candy at Halloween. Here's the brutal truth, folks, the CHIPS Act, Trump's tariffs, and this whole semiconductor saga are just the latest chapters in a long, sad story of government incompetence and corporate cronyism. The CHIPS Act was supposed to save the U.S. semiconductor industry, but it's really just a welfare program for billion-dollar corporations. Trump's tariffs were supposed to bring jobs back, but they're really just a tax on you, the consumer, while China and Taiwan tighten their grip on the global chip market. And the recession? It's not coming, it's already here, thanks to a government that cares more about political points than economic results. So, what's the fix? Stop subsidizing corporate giants and start investing in small businesses and workers. Scrap the tariffs and focus on real supply chain resilience, not political stunts. And for the love of all that is holy, stop treating taxpayers like an ATM for failed experiments in industrial policy. But hey, what do I know? I'm just the guy yelling into the void while the economy burns. That's all for today, folks. If you're as fed up as I am with this economic clown show, smash that like button, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Let's keep shining a light on the government's failures and holding them accountable. Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and remember, at Boss Economics World, we're always on your side, not theirs. Peace out.